Just give me a
Okay.
warning.
Have you
I figured you had a wedding.
Do you guys
Just give
have
me a
these?
warning if you
No, we don't.
If I do.
Is this one?
Do you have? Did you get?
No.
I have one you gave me.
This is a packet.
Ready.
Right, I don't have anything. Well then, Jody, you guys.
I don't have the whole packet?
This is, what are you doing?
There should be 3 in a packet, right?
Three?
I
Right.
have this here.
I got 3.
You got 3? Do
Thank
you have
you.
3?
No, I got this from the deputy town attorney.
Right. He doesn't have a packet.
I don't have it.
Okay.
And you can
Let's, we're gonna start our work session, with a, well, we're gonna start our special board meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. John, you wanna lead us off?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I hit somewhere else here.
All right,
This summary.
yesterday we had, we're doing a special board meeting today. Yesterday we had a, really what I'm gonna say, a phenomenal day in Albany, and it wasn't, we were meeting with key people from the governor's office and from the DEC. We met with Leisha Eve, who is the Deputy Secretary of Economic Development. She's not really from, not all that familiar with Long Island. She's from Buffalo. And she has been down to Long Island once or twice, but she was very interested. Andrew Kennedy, the Assistant Secretary for Economic Development, was also in the meeting.
Here it is.
And we talked about the EPCAL subdivision, the EPCAL district legislation that we're going to pass the home rule message on today. And they really were very, very encouraging. And it was good. The governor's office is really on task here with trying to stimulate economic growth in the region and in the state of New York. It's not just a slogan, we're open for business. I got the sense that they were supporting this. They're going to look at the legislation. Hopefully the governor in the next 2 weeks will be able to help us, because there's 2 weeks left to get this legislation passed. And then what we did was we went over to the DEC and we met with Mark Gerstmann, who is the Executive Deputy Commissioner, Julia Ty, who's the Director of Legislative Affairs, and Commissioner Joe Martens, to talk about the subdivision, talk about the secret process, talk about scoping and lead agency status. And the meeting, Peter Scully came in on speakerphone, and that meeting was absolutely phenomenal. I came out of that meeting for the first time thinking the state is moving and the DEC is moving in the right direction. They get it, they understand. We've, as you know, we're going to be applying for $6 million of money from the Regional Economic Development Council, the Governor's Regional Economic Development Council, for the map, plan, and design of the sewage treatment plant, and potentially some infrastructure installation in that $6 million. And what the DEC said to us was that if this becomes noticed by the Economic Development Council as a transformative project, the DEC fast tracks. And all indications are that this is going to be recognized as a transformative project. It is probably the largest commercial subdivision in the Northeast that's being done. There are some other parcels that are as large as the 900 acres we're trying to subdivide, but not as large as the 16 or 1700 that we're actually dealing with. So it was very, very, very encouraging. Now, Senator Laval, we saw him briefly. We mainly dealt with Brian Murphy, who came to the meetings at Senator Laval's attorney, the Senate attorney assigned to Laval's office. And Brian Murphy sat in these meetings and really was able to help us formulate a message to the DEC and to the governor's office, and I thank him for that. What was great too is the Senate has released this from the local government committee, local government committee. Now, they did not require a home rule message to release it. The Senate requires a home rule message to pass it. We're under the wire. We're down to the wire here, folks. They're probably going to meet 4 days next week and 3 or 4 days the following week. So this is, this is really crunch time. We spoke to Assemblyman Thiel's office. Assemblyman Thiel and Assemblyman LaSquadro are co-sponsoring this in the Assembly. We spoke to their office, and the reason this kind of got pushed a little bit quicker is the Assembly rules, the way we understood them from the conversation, was that they need the home rule message before they pass it out of committee. This statute has been through the, through the legislative process, and the basic points are the same. There are a couple things that are a little bit different. It's not a 75-day approval. We had to give on that. It's 90 days. There is the ability for an additional 90-day extension. It's a 7-member board, district board. This is going to be a special district, so it limits the to the boundaries of EPCAL. The board will consist of the 5 elected town board members, an appointee from the governor's office, an appointee from the county executive's office.
And 2 other people, right?
And 2 ex officio members, which we're thinking will be in non-voting environmental groups or something along those lines. What is really encouraging, I mean, the town board will retain control, obviously by the numbers, but having the governor's office and having the county executive's office, we can't go this alone. This project is of such a scale. When I speak to the other supervisors in the town and they say, well, gee, we try to develop 10 acres and you're trying to develop, work on a 2,900 acre, what was a 2,900 acre parcel, and ultimately we'll be developing just under 900 acres, their heads spin. The cost of the sewer infrastructure, we believe, will be $30 million. If we get the $6 million now, that puts us in a very good position to go back and look for more. The roads and drainage, roads, we believe, would be about $15 million. We're going to stick with all the meetings that we've had, and this is pretty much my full-time job now. With all the meetings that we've had, it seems that the Regional Economic Development Council wants us to stick with sewer money. That's what they've given in the past, and that's what they're comfortable with. So I'm very encouraged that we're going to get this money. I'm cautiously optimistic that we can get this voted on this session. We've spent quite a bit of time going back and forth to Albany and working with the various senators and assembly people. So that's the update. The final piece is that the DEC, I believe, is going to work with us to let the town be lead agency on the SECRA. They have one more meeting that they're doing with VHB, Kevin Walsh, and Terry Elkowitz, I believe, on the 15th. And they're going to go over some final details. There's a couple things that they've brought to our attention, the wetlands that we didn't necessarily know about that needs to be protected. We knew about it, but nobody ever documented it, and I actually went out and looked at it and said, yeah.
Which area is that? I'm just curious. Is that down
Right
the
behind the
south?
steam
Oh,
plant.
okay, down there.
Right behind the steam plant. And I went and looked at it. Would I call it a wetlands? Well, there's cattails. A lot of cattails doesn't mean it's a wetlands, but there's cattails, and it's not, when you're talking about the scope of development, we're talking about if you lose a little bit of acreage here. And then the other thing was they would like us to move the WSR 500 feet north of Grumman Boulevard to provide a little bit more protection. I think that they are very much in tune with letting us keep an access on to Grumman Boulevard. And the way they looked at it is, well, you're just switching the line road access to this other access because it fits into the subdivision better.
Line road.
That's your
That's
favorite place.
Is that just for the westerly portion of the site, or is that for the easterly portion of the site also, where they want to move the 500-foot setback to make it 1,000?
Sorry.
No, they're moving it to make a 500-foot setback only on the westerly portion. The easterly portion is the part where we've kind of all agreed that that's gonna be open space
So they don't want that
forever.
intense development there, and I understand it's kind of close to the sensitive areas.
Right.
I wonder if, just throwing this out there, if they'd consider something like a passive use, like solar or something.
I don't know,
You
maybe.
know what I'm saying? That may be,
There's so much-
we're ways from that, I'm just thinking out loud.
There's so much property available for us to develop that if we move that line 500 feet,
It's not gonna make
It's
much
not gonna-
difference out of there.
I was just concerned about the private property that's on to the easterly side of the Calverton Camelot subdivision that, you know, they're in the process of filing applications for.
those people, I think, are in the WSR regardless.
Right, but if we take another 500 feet out of that, then.
It's not
Okay.
impacting them. This is where the WSR, and I can show you later, the maps are in my car. The WSR, the Grumman Boulevard is the WSR line.
It's a line, so you
So
just
they
kick
want to
up.
move it just into our property. We're not dealing with the other.
That's fine, I think that's
Good, yeah.
So-
doable.
You know,
Are they willing to give up 25, WSR on 25? On
On
the
25?
south side of 25, the WSR
Riverhead.
line
oh,
on
Riverhead,
the
oh,
south
well,
side?
yeah, that's a
On
separate,
West
about
Main Street?
Riverhead.
No.
that's a separate project.
But,
So I'm very encouraged with
Yeah.
everything I'm
That's
hearing.
no,
good.
this is, to
It's
me
wonderful.
personally, this is exciting news.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big deal, because we've all been envisioning this for a while now, and your effort's been, you know, if this gets through this session, I will say Supervisor Schoenwald has moved the mountain.
Well, I'm hoping, even if
And we
it,
didn't need special people to do it.
even if we didn't get it through the session, if we don't get this legislation through
Right.
the special
It's
session.
still close enough, it's gonna.
It's still close enough. And, you know, it is problematic, Jim, because I spend an exorbitant amount of
I know.
time on this issue. I am traveling all over
Well, I'm glad
Long
the state
Island and
recognizes
all over the
this as well,
state.
and I'm glad they're in
No,
favor of
it's-
it too.
Your
because
effort's been,
it benefits the state as well, so
Beyond.
everybody's on the same page, I think, with this.
Yep.
So we should be, hopefully we can get it through. I think the Senate is poised, hopefully next week to adopt it. We need to get it out of the Assembly, so,
Good.
committee. All right, so that's
Very
my
good.
update. Did you have anything else from VHB? Because you were kind of,
Nope, we're all good.
okay.
The legislation refers to a traffic study. So,
We're doing it.
Yeah,
Okay.
as part of our contract with VHB, they're required to do a traffic study, and they've actually already initiated that. Probably they started it about 2 months ago.
okay, so they're predicating that on 100% build out on the lots that we're
Yes.
proposing?
Yes.
Okay, and we haven't established the uses yet, so how can they determine how
Well,
much
that's why
traffic
it's
is
not
gonna be?
complete.
Okay,
It's not yet complete.
okay. And then
I have
it
a recent quarterly report that they submitted that I'll provide you with a copy.
And then it also says 90-day approval process with a 90-day extension with a waiver from the applicant. And then after that time, once it's determined that the proposal is consistent with the plan, that then it would go to the building department. I thought that when we had gone to Devon's, there was a person that was actually at the table that was reviewing these construction plans, so that all of that was inclusive with their approval period, and it wasn't going to another step after. It was, you know, predictability of the timeframes, because once it goes over to the building department, and if it has to go to planning.
No, it doesn't go to, it's
Doesn't
gonna
go
go
to
to the
planning.
building department for compliance with New York State building and fire codes.
Okay, so
That's the
we're,
purpose of
so
that.
we're going to determine within this 90 days the amount of parking spaces that are needed for that build-out and everything
Oh, yeah.
else?
So on the plan.
Yeah.
Not us.
Okay.
That commission will.
It's in the
commission will-
review,
Commission
right.
which will be.
Well, we're
Yeah.
5
Reviews.
people on a
Yes.
7-person
There we go.
commission,
Yeah,
so.
but it's not
We
just
go.
us, it's the county and the
And
So I
the
guess
state.
you would direct planning staff to assist
Yeah,
us
we
with
wouldn't,
that?
it would never
No.
come into town hall.
Okay.
It
No.
would never,
No.
what the commission will have to do is set up bylaws, if you will, a plan, and the way I envision the plan going is we're gonna hire a consulting firm. It's not coming into town hall. You don't have the staff to evaluate this type of thing. The perfect example would be VHB. They're a worldwide consulting firm. They could take an application like this and turn it around overnight. We could never do that in the planning. That's the key. And when you set up the fee structure, and this is where, think about why we did what we did with the building department. When you set up the fee structure for people coming in, the fees to pay VHB are gonna come from the application. This is not gonna be a cheap application to make. If you're gonna get approval in 90 days, there's gonna be a lot of effort that goes into it. The town will never realize those fees, any fees, unless they go to the building department.
Or unless we bond.
And the way this was drafted,
No, we're bonding. We had tried, but it came out, we did try to put the New York State, that we could bond through the New York State Dormitory Authority. We were not successful in this round of negotiation, but I'm not done yet. You know, if we get this through,
Oh, yeah.
and the owner of the property, the CDA, still retains its bonding authority as an urban renewal agency, so all is not lost with respect to bonding. And specifically, when we drafted this legislation, we put in that the governing body of the district has the authority to hire whatever outside consultants or experts they deem appropriate.
Okay, so if the EPCAL Commission should desire to bond for the infrastructure and for the roadways. I mean, I attended the tax incentive finance seminar that they had yesterday with all people involved, but if
It would be the
if
community currently it would be the Community Development Agency because they're the owner of the
Right, not the
property.
town of
Okay.
Riverhead.
It
So-
wouldn't be the district commissioners.
Okay, so
Right.
if
Who
it
would
was,
The
authorize?
CDA.
okay. So if it is the CDA, who pays down the bond indebtedness?
That would be the Community Development Agency through the sale of the properties.
Okay, so what if we haven't sold anything yet because we can't, because we have to put the infrastructure in? So we need to bond to do the infrastructure and we haven't sold anything yet. And then who pays down the bond indebtedness?
That's why the town is currently actively going for the ability to get the grant support for the infrastructure,
Okay,
for
and
the
if we-
$6 million.
And we're very optimistic, and I know that that the supervisor and the staff has been working very hard for that. I'm just concerned that I don't want even though it is the taxpayer's property at EPCAL, that the burden of additional bonding or indebtedness on the taxpayers is going to be significant for the development of this property before we can sell the first piece of land.
the long and the short of it, Jody, is this. If we can't
We won't
bond
get
through DASNY, then sale proceeds are going to be used to pay for the infrastructure. The town can't have it both ways. The town can't,
So-
we've used this as a piggy bank to run up huge debts in the town, and then we pay it incrementally from sale proceeds. We can't continue to do that, and so if we sell a piece of property at $100,000 an acre, the town board is going to have to peel off a certain percentage of that to go to pay for infrastructure.
Okay, so can I be assured that that we would not bond anything unless we had actual contracts and proceeds from down payments for contracts for development at the site that would cover the bond indebtedness for a certain period of time before
How are
we
you
can-
going to, if you can't make,
Well,
you
because
can't get
we-
an assurance like that?
But we can say we're not going to put any bond or any debt on the town unless we actually have contracts of people that are interested in buying property. And then when they give a 20% down payment
not
of
gonna
whatever the
bond
purchase
us.
price is.
If we don't.
Yeah, I don't think-
We're not there yet.
Yeah, I don't think
We're
you
not
can
there
do
yet.
that.
We don't know the market yet, what's exciting
Right,
can be
yeah.
about it.
And I'm not gonna
Yeah.
You
bond
might,
the
you
future
speculate
town
may come in
board.
and buy a
Yeah.
lot of it up, we don't know the dynamics yet.
Yeah.
I just don't want to see us going out for a $44 million bond before we're in contract to sell
Absolutely.
any of these
Jody,
properties.
there's not one person that has ever suggested that, not one person.
Okay, but it's written in here that
It
the
is not.
commission can bond.
It is not,
No, it isn't.
there's no, the goal is this. You get the property subdivided. You get the $6 million, which I think we're cautiously optimistic for the map and plan and some of the infrastructure. What I'd like to see the town board do sometime maybe next year, and I throw this out there, we haven't spoken about it as a board, maybe we do a sealed bid for a certain number of lots in the subdivision, have a date certain, have the bids opened, and see what people are willing to buy on a sealed bid. If we don't like the proposals, we reject them, and we go the normal route. But in that time frame, I am cautiously optimistic that this is going to be deemed a project of regional significance, and then all eyes are gonna be on this location to help us. But if the town board were to try to tie its hands, that would send a signal to the state of New York that, wait a minute, the town's not willing to invest in their
This
future.
has to be a commercial and municipal togetherness in this.
Absolutely.
It has to be, there's a lot of acreage out there, and we have to help
CDA.
businesses come into the
They're the
town
owner.
with it. And this is the only way we can do it.
Says the commission
is by- And Jody,
shall be
you
able
know,
to
in
borrow
business,
money and
sometimes
issue
you have to
bonds.
put your foot forward first.
Spend money to make money.
And spend a little money so you could have a product, a good product that you can sell.
I
I mean,
understand
a
that.
business person,
I
know
understand
that.
that, John, but
Yes.
you know how much a tax increase of $44 million would be if we don't have any money or any prospective buyers on the taxpayers?
We have so many people right now chomping at the bit to
Yeah.
buy this
Yeah.
property, it would, I think that the public's head would spin.
we just have to
We
subdivide
need to
some
get
small
it
lots.
subdivided.
I don't
It's
believe
hard
in
to sell a
spending money
700
before you know how you're gonna, or borrowing money before you know how you're gonna pay
Well,
for
we're
it.
not,
Well,
we're not borrowing it
Nobody's
right now.
borrowing any money.
We're not
you're-
borrowing it.
Okay,
You're
okay.
2 years
I'm
out.
just asking the question, that's all.
Okay.
You're 2 years out. We're not,
Yeah, we're not borrowing no money.
and I don't, and
This says that the board has the right to borrow money.
Not,
course, so
not,
does the
Right, you
town
have
of
to give them
Riverhead,
that
so
right.
does the
Yeah.
CDA.
You have to give them that right,
but not,
see?
they're not doing it for the infrastructure because they don't own that property.
Okay, so,
And five,
But you're the board.
and I was gonna
Okay.
say,
Not
five
asking
sevenths
you
of
to
the board
pass a
are us,
resolution.
so, or whoever's sitting here,
That's
so.
right.
Yeah, we're not passing a bond authorization resolution,
Right.
so,
It's not about the sale as much as it's about the development, so
okay.
we'll put the sale money back into
But
the
you have to
development,
put
that's all.
things in place so they can move forward without being hampered, or stopped. And I think that's part of this project.
And I've been saying all along in that if I'm gonna buy a piece of property, I would wanna make sure that I could build a building and connect to the sewers and be ready to move in within 6 months' time. It's great to have a 90-day approval process, but if the sewer infrastructure is not in place, I'm not going to be able to occupy that building unless it is. So who's paying for that?
You're
That's
a-
all I wanted to know.
you're 100% right. The question is, it's a good question. Nobody on this board has a crystal ball.
Right.
I just know that you have to keep checking the boxes and filling the
Yeah.
squares to get to the end game. And this is another box we have to
That we have
check
to
off to
check
get
off.
there.
And I think that we're at a good stage in our goal to subdivide EPCAL and to be able to sell off the property. I just, that has always been a concern of mine, and I guess we'll figure it out when the time comes.
Yeah, well, it's,
You know, this is the first step. We never had, Jody, we never had a first step. We always tried to sell 700
I
acres
know,
or
John.
900 acres. This is
John?
the first step in getting small lots. So a normal business can start purchasing there
I know.
and
I've
get
been
things going.
subdividing property for 25 years, John, I know how it goes.
Well, so.
I really think
you
this
have to.
project is not for the faint of heart. If you wanna move forward, you've gotta believe in this and
That's
just
right, you
keep
got it.
moving.
well,
I-
And you bring good questions up, Jody, I understand, but I think we'll get there.
I think it
with
comes
those.
back
At
to
this
the
point, we're not
original
at that
vote
point.
last year, when we took that feat,
It's
that leap
not
of
for the weak of
faith.
heart, yeah.
No.
And we were willing to spend $400,000 or $500,000 to get this view study, because Riverhead really never reinvested into that property to make it
Never put a nickel
sellable.
back.
We were always
No,
looking
I
for
think
the,
it's great. I commend the supervisor
this is a
and the
good-
staff
this
of
is a
the
good thing.
town who have been working on this, Emery. I know you've been working very hard on it also, and
What did the study
I
do to
think that
support
it's
this?
a good step, and I'm glad that we have the state's ears, and that they're willing to move this forward, and I think it would be a prime example of how large parcels of land like this that have been abandoned, either by naval forces or Grumman, to set an example and to lay out a map and plan as to how to develop the property. So I think it's a great thing. I think you've done a great job, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. All right, we ready to vote?
We're ready to go.
full meeting.
Okay. Resolution 456.
Oh, wait, my glasses on.
That would be you, Jones.
456, offer support to New York State Legislature to amend the general municipal law in relation to establishing the Enterprise Park at Calverton Reuse and Revitalizing District. So moved.
And I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 457.
457 authorizes to publish advertisement for a request for proposals for landfill renewable energy project. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
I'd just like to comment that this has been a long time coming, because we've had different people interested in, but we finally came up with an RFP. We have a lot of interest in it, and we also have another resolution authorizing the town of Riverhead to actually lease the landfill. Okay.
So that's a
Yes.
yes. Okay. Wooten.
Yeah, when the cap was done, it was anticipated that this would be a great use of that property, so we're set. The stage has been set. Yes.
Dunleavy.
Again, we're trying to help the taxpayer of the town of Riverhead, and this will help us with the electricity, because this RFP says they can sell to LIPA, and so we're trying, and I think this is a first step in doing it, is putting an RFP out, so I vote yes.
Walter.
Yes, George, nice, good job. I know you've been at this at least a year or two.
Last June, it started.
Oh, a year.
We finally
Hey.
got there with the help of Anne Marie. I
Right.
want to thank her.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 458.
It's a resolution authorizing the town of Riverhead to lease landfill located at Youngs Avenue, Riverhead, New York, for development, construction, installation, management of a renewable energy project, solar, wow, it's a
Photovoltaic. Yeah.
photovoltaic energy system or systems by a firm to be selected by the request for proposal procedure, subject to permissive referendum. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Oh.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yeah.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted.
All righty. Well,
I make a motion we close the special town board meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, okay, yeah, thanks, Diane.
You're very welcome.
We've got Chief Ken, you want to come up? We're going to talk about the armory.
Good morning.
Good morning,
morning.
Chief.
I have that key for the fence, but I'm going to get a confirmation.
How are you this morning?
If you would like, I could get
I know you guys have been working on, with the Justice Court, armory relocating the PD in the Justice Court, and I'm gonna throw at least something out. I know some people don't necessarily agree with it, but possibly housing one or two of the excess ambulances. I did have or not excess, but one of the two ambulances that are outside in that building, and a youth center. You know, I think that we're hoping to design it, George, you'll like this. We're hoping to design the building in a way to keep that basketball court
Keep the gym.
open and keep that gym.
Good.
So, that's the goal. I did speak to the ambulance. They don't want to move to the armory, but I don't think that I spoke to a couple past directors and the chairman of I think the building fund over there, Bruce Talmadge, and what Mr. Talmadge indicated was, we don't want to move where we are, but if we could have one or two bays in the back as designated for the ambulances, that would solve their space needs for the time being, or help alleviate their space needs for the time being. So now what it comes down to is we've got to really do an RFP to select an engineering firm, architectural firm to design this thing. And I know the board, it was the board's desire to set aside some of that $500,000 from the trust and agency account reconciliation to this project, so we're paying as you go. Do we have any concept of what we think the design's going to be, cost?
Well, what we were proposing to do is do it in phases and retain somebody basically for like a conceptual layout. The first task they would do would be like a study of the building, the space available, what would fit in it, what wouldn't fit in it, any additions that might be needed, and come up with some cost proposals for you.
Okay.
And then you could choose your option, and then we would go the next step and ask them for the actual design costs. So initially, it would just be a matter of a study.
I think that's a
figure
good
out
idea.
where, you know, we'll do it that way, and
Well,
we'll.
do you know, I did speak with, I talked to Justice Court a lot, but are some of those that work there, I mean, the police department have their concerns about what they need and what they may need now that they didn't need then. Same with the court, they're gonna have some input as to what kind of
Absolutely,
design?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
important you use that knowledge there.
Judges have
been up there already.
Yeah.
You know, and what we've done in the past with similar studies for town hall, was go around to each department, yes, find out what their current needs are,
A wish
what
list,
their
what they need.
anticipated growth is over the
Right.
next 10 to 15 to 20 years, so we can make sure if we renovate the place, we have the ability to
Because I'm not sure
expand
that
it.
was done in '86 when they built this building. 'cause it was-
Maybe not,
we
I'm
out-
not really sure. I
We
wasn't here,
outgrew it
but
the minute we
we
moved in.
would, yeah, we would,
Yeah,
you know,
that
the
was
initial.
about, what, 30 years ago?
'86, yeah.
Yeah, the initial task would be going through, and I do have a lot of records that were transmitted to us from the town attorney's office as far as as-built drawings and engineering drawings of the armory. So that would be something they wouldn't have to do. They would just really need to take that, meet with the different departments, find out their current and future needs, and then develop for us a list of options
Good.
with costs so that you can make a educated decision on how you want to proceed.
Yeah.
So with your approval, I'll draft something up in the form of an RFP with the chief, and we'll do a resolution authorizing you to let it, and
Yeah,
we'll
that's,
get it out on the
that's
street.
the most common thing to do.
And we're gonna
I
try
think
to,
30 years ago, and just to answer Councilman Wooten, that the court was supposed to be held in here. This was designed to be the courtroom.
I
And
think,
we had doors over there for a jury room. So then when they decided to incorporate justice court with the police department, the building was already sized, so they didn't have much room to put it in there. And that was the
Right.
second thought, because actually the court was supposed to be in this room here.
yeah, and that building really doesn't lend itself well to future expansion,
Huge.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
typical
so-
building
There's
that's
been a lot of
modified
walls thrown up over
internally.
there.
Right, yep.
So, you know, we'd make that a priority, you know, of the study, that it have some potential for expandability in the future. You have plenty of land, but whatever we design should be designed in such a way that moving a wall out would allow you to, whereas next door, you know, all the air conditioning systems are on the roof, so if you put a
Yeah.
second
Well,
floor
the
on.
problem with that building over there, with regulations back 30 years ago, it was designed for 2 floors. But as regulations change over 30 years, now it's impractical to put a second floor on top of that
Expensive,
building.
Very expensive.
Well, because
It's
of all
very-
the,
So,
all the roof
so
things,
it's just
right.
not, everything changes, and, you try to design something for future growth, but as regulations change, it may not fit that regulation anymore, the future growth. So that's what happens.
And one of the grading or scoring criteria in the RFP will be past experience building, as I know there was an issue here with with the architect who did that, not having a lot of, police station experience, and there was some things that might have been done
Who's that,
differently.
Donald Dennis?
I'm not allowed to say.
No, we don't wanna say.
There's a plaque, I think there's a plaque up on there, I did find it.
And what I'd suggest is maybe a committee that would review the RFP responses, you know, myself and the chief, and maybe one of the justices,
Absolutely.
and somebody from the ambulance corps, and of course, whatever board members that want to be part and parcel to that, and then we would make a recommendation to you. That committee would make a recommendation to the full board on maybe the top 3, and then it would come down to negotiating a reasonable fee with within the top 3.
Will you be distributing the request for proposal to the department heads that would be utilizing that space so that they can make sure
Absolutely.
that all of their needs will be in there prior to publishing it?
It's a great idea. I'll make sure that's done, so that anything
Yeah, I
specific
think
to
that's
what they
what
need will be
Councilman Wooten
included. Yeah, Jody's suggesting that the actual RFP itself have input from the affected departments.
Well,
Right, like you can do a draft and then send it out to all the
Yes, I'll
department
do
heads
that.
that would be utilizing that space, so that if there are needs that they have that aren't included, we get it all in and
Absolutely.
first shot.
Right. We'll do that, and I'll circulate the draft to the board as well.
Right.
okay, get it done.
So we'll work on that.
Okay.
Sweet.
Good job, thank you.
Get it
All
done.
right,
We won't be able to afford to fix it for a
right.
few years, but at least we'll have an idea
Sorry
where
to
we're
make you wait an
Now, the
hour.
police department's using that for training right now, correct? I see
we
cars
do
up there.
That's a
Oh,
good
Well, we
suggestion.
do,
Yeah.
MV stops, motor vehicle stops.
Okay,
Yeah.
We know what MV stops
Today.
so far.
okay, thank you.
We know what MV stops
I
are.
know, you know.
How you doing, Ray? Good. How are you today? Good.
Ray, chairman of the bid, how are you?
Good, good.
Oh, here we go.
Yourself?
Very
What's
good.
going on?
We'd like to get your permission to set up a farmer's market, arts and crafts setup along the boardwalk by the riverfront.
Right.
We would use the grassy area where they would set their tents up, and the boardwalk would be where people would walk along. It would be a great networking tool, too, for businesses on Main Street. They could pop up a tent and let people know they're there, get some organic farmers to get involved, people that make crafts, and artists. There's a lot of artists that would like to display their artwork and sell it. And we think it would be a great addition to the town. It would bring a lot of people
Are
downtown.
you gonna coordinate with East End Arts?
Yes.
Now,
Okay.
when would this take place?
We want to do it once a week on a Saturday or a Sunday.
You have to do this obviously within your existing budget, because there's no more reserve
It
fund.
won't cost us any more to do it, because we're gonna charge about $25 a booth. That would take care of the advertising, and that's
Okay.
the only cost that we have.
Okay.
We have
So-
smaller booths, like 10 by 10s.
10 by 10s.
10 by 10s.
And we would split them up so people would still have access to, it's a long boardwalk.
Right.
So there'd still be plenty of access if you wanted to come down and go fishing or something, or maybe section off an area, you know.
Well,
But we
again,
would,
once again, which day would this be on?
a Saturday or a Sunday,
On a weekend.
I wanted
I see myself
opinion.
casting my pole and throwing somebody's wares into the river. That's- I'm
No,
sorry
we
about
would-
that.
Great. They do that in Central Park in the city around the holidays.
Yes.
And they have the
I go.
farmer's market, and they have the the different businesses in downtown that can occupy a space and you can walk. It's like a flea market. It's
They do it all around the city, they move it every week.
So there'll be vegetables,
Right.
there'll
I
be
think- I
artists,
think
there'll be
it's
what else?
Saturday.
a great idea.
Or Sunday would be okay.
Just something
I think it
like
would be
an
up to
open
the
market
bid
type.
to
Yeah,
choose
an
the
open
day
market.
that they could get the most out of it,
Crafts thing.
and,
Well, they do.
for the town of Riverhead.
And, you know, people,
A lot of people walking up and down that river, might as well give them something to
Yeah,
look at.
exactly.
We have with them,
Add to it.
with the bid.
And then eventually what we'd like to do is add, you know,
Wow.
as it comes along, put some entertainment over in
Right, years
Grangeville
ago,
Park
the-
as part of this too.
We probably have to amend our agreement with you for this, just because contractually you've given us a list of events, so we've got to
Right.
put this into that. And one of Anne Marie was just saying license agreement, maybe we should have an agreement with the various vendors, you know, just from a liability standpoint. We don't want to make it, we don't want to scare anybody away, but, you
Yep.
know, just cover all our bases.
Yep. Okay.
So
Yeah.
with that being said, I guess we just look for a quick amendment to the, we have two town attorneys, so if somebody has to tell Dan McCormick, though, he's the attorney you guys deal with, right?
Oh,
While you're here,
Let's keep him here, but let's
Yeah.
when do you want to start this?
I'm gonna put out some feelers, we're gonna visit some organic farmers and see if they have interest in it. So it's not anything we set yet, but
mid-July maybe.
I'm gonna put a little ad in the paper to attract some people. You know, there's a lot of
There's-
organic
I just-
farmers
I-
out there that
I
don't
just-
have farm stands.
I just implore you to, not implore you, but I think it's a good idea to reach out. The fact she probably has all those connections already.
Yes.
I'm sure she could just bang out an email. Boom.
while you're here, would you fill the board into what the parking district, is
Yes.
doing?
We-
Okay?
We propose to set up a central area for the garbage in the back parking lot on the south side. We picked a spot where it's going to go, and it would be a compactor. So we don't have all of those dumpsters hanging around. So it would be a compactor and a cardboard container.
Is that area John was talking about behind his place, right there?
No, all the way over in the
No, we're
corner.
gonna put it by the comfort station. You know
Right.
where the road is? The comfort station's on
comfort
this side.
station.
This is gonna be on the
Right in the
right-hand
corner.
side.
Where the ice rink was
right
gonna go.
corner Where the comfort
Yeah.
station
Where the
is.
ice rink
Still, yeah,
was
but
gonna
on
go.
the opposite side of it.
That
I
grassy
think it's
area there?
great.
We keep filling up.
Because
No, not
Well,
the
it's
grass
got
area,
some
in the parking
blacktop.
lot. Yeah.
There's some grass and some blacktop right there.
And it'll allow for recycling of cardboard and
Yes.
things of that nature.
Oh,
which is
I'm
compact
into it.
there.
I
It's
just,
great.
rumor had it you were gonna stick it over where the tourist thing was, not.
Well, that was where, but we don't forget, we're gonna have restaurants over there now.
And residences.
And residences,
Right.
so, that had to be rethought and,
And we got a garbage company
and they
that
moved it.
gave us a approximate quote on what it would be. I want to get back to them because originally, years ago, when Marty started doing this,
This
there
is
was a
legislated, right? Commercial
system.
district?
I think Anne Marie,
Right.
you're gonna handle all the paperwork?
Right, it's
Yes.
gonna be, an amendment to, the town board's gonna adopt a resolution amending,
Wonderful.
the special
Wonderful.
Why
permit.
don't you come on up so we can get you on?
And I know that, you know, Judy Jakunski has been pushing for many years to
On
get
the upper
something
side.
similar on the north side.
Oh, we are,
Yes.
Right.
we are
Doing it
we
there
are
too.
doing something else,
There too.
yes, on
Wonderful.
the north
Yeah,
side,
both
Fantastic.
sides.
yes.
So essentially what it's gonna be is a resolution of the town board amending the special permit approval. Because in the special permit approvals, it talks about the location of garbage and dumpsters. So it actually works out beautifully because it's the jurisdiction of the town board. So I'm simply gonna, for instance, on the,
Right, because as of now, they're not allowed on public.
on the north side, it'll be an amendment to the special permit issued to the culinary arts. And then in addition, I'm requiring all the entities that are gonna do the shared dumpsters
Right.
to actually provide the town board with a consent waiver and hold harmless.
Oh, good.
This way, if there's a falling out between any of the entities, the town board's not responsible in any way, and the town should incur no cost either.
And this will be fenced and landscaped.
Right.
Correct, all those
Absolutely.
provisions are
Huh?
gonna be put in the amended,
Make it less than
Now, this will
special
be,
permit.
this is gonna go on town property.
Right.
Yes.
Yes,
So we have to amend that too, because that town, right now, town code says it can't be on town property. Okay.
it's all taken care of.
Right.
So then the people that opt to pay into this fund that would pay the carting company on a monthly basis, or
Right.
however often it is, that's handled outside of the town, right?
Right.
We don't get
Town has
involved in
nothing to
that.
do. The garbage
Good.
company said they'll take the responsibility of
That's
that.
what the consent waiver and hold harmless is all about.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so
Town
then,
is not
if
involved.
the business owners would go into contract with each other as to monthly payments or usage and things of that nature,
That's
and then if
all.
someone doesn't pay, then they
I
handle
think the
it.
garbage company
Okay,
and the
good.
bid are gonna handle that.
Right.
Right? The garbage company and the bid.
And
are
there is a
gonna
way to do it where it's shared responsibly, and there's a card that you're issued, and every time you wanna put your garbage in that area, you have to flash your
wow.
card,
So
and
it
it
actually
weighs
keeps
the
track
garbage.
of-
So
That's
if a store
incredible.
doesn't use a lot, he doesn't get charged as much as a store that uses it.
right.
Wow, that's
So,
incredible, very
It
good.
works really
We're
good.
trying to
Innovation.
equal out the cost
Yeah.
of what
I can see
garbage,
the
how much
feuding
garbage
starting,
you
I
have.
can see it.
Roll
I can
it
see
over
the
the
feuding
fence.
starting.
And on the
Using the
north side, just
No,
to
'cause
let
it's gonna
everybody
have
know,
a
on the north side, it's gonna be put,
On that island?
where the 1 hour parking is, around that island. We have a light there.
Outside the
It's
culinary?
it's gonna be put there and fenced and landscaped.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That's what
Right.
Judy
That's
wanted,
just a
she wanted to do that
dumpster,
3
though.
years ago.
Yeah.
That's just a dumpster, that's gonna
got
be just a
shut down.
dumpster.
Now,
Yeah.
for those
Good.
people that don't opt
Right.
into this, we still don't want their dumpsters in our parking lot, so the code has to be written in a way that if you opt in,
Yeah,
you can get your
yeah, right.
dumpsters off
Yeah.
your property. If you
Yeah.
don't wanna opt in, then keep your dumpsters on your
Yeah.
parking lot,
Yeah.
because I don't wanna give anybody an unfair advantage.
Right.
And this is a much better solution than a garbage district, so
Right.
I'm pleased.
It gets it done.
They should do it over on the other side too, behind High
Yes.
Kingy.
All right, good.
Great.
Good work,
Okay.
John. I know you worked on that
Yeah.
race day, because we're gonna talk about Chris Kempner. We're gonna switch around a little bit. Chris, why don't you come up? Let's talk about the Second Street Firehouse. John and I and,
Modular buildings.
Jill?
the Jill and Tony
Okay.
packed into my
Okay.
car. Chris, I don't even remember. Just packed into the car and went to Patchogue to look at something. So, John, you wanna, what,
It was very informative. We went over to Patchogue to look into their artist, conception of, artist,
Arts and
where
places.
they can buy, you have rooms and display their art.
Art space.
Artist comes first, after the artist, then comes the workforce housing. If they don't have an artist, they can rent these houses to workforce. It was very interesting. You wanna see this building, it's a simple building, but everybody loves living in the building, and they have a lock to get in. You just can't walk into the building. They have committees in the building that watch over. They're gonna have a board of directors, that if you have a dispute with another tenant, you can go to the board of directors, and they can settle it. And you go up to the floors, and there's everybody's allowed to decorate around their doors. So, I mean, you wanna see the pictures, and some are photographers, some are painters, and some are just people who just like to decorate the floor in place with the, so it's affordable. The county takes care of it. You have to fall within the affordable lines
Right.
of the structure of the county. And I just thought that you know, anybody we spoke to, we went into a 3-bedroom, and she was so pleased. She was a single mother with 3 kids, and she was so happy she was there, living in this place. And she took us on a tour. Actually, she was the one who took us on a tour of the building, and it's a great opportunity. And you know, myself, you don't have to put much money into it, as long as it's clean, it looks nice, and it's affordable. People will love it, and it just gives a start of a family.
And Paul Pontieri
That's
is,
right.
I learned, was a rock star in that
Yes.
2.5
Yep.
square mile village.
Yep.
So
but-
we,
But,
so we
and
were
also-
talking about the fire department property. We own a building, the fire department building, so we were talking about making use of that building for something like this, and I thought it was a great idea.
So I want to just put this out.
Go ahead.
And then we'll really open it up to discussion of what we do with the Second Street Firehouse. We are starting to have a parking problem, not quite a parking problem yet, but we are starting to have a parking problem downtown. So my comments go to that issue. We have a decision to make. Do we want to try to open this up, the firehouse, to somebody that would build an artist's, or, yeah, I like the art space type concept, a little bit more than the affordable housing concept, because it's different. We have Summerwind, this is different. But by doing that, we're removing 1.1 acres of potential parking. So the board, this is a tough decision. It's not just we like it and we want to do it. Patchogue has 2,100 parking spaces. If we count everything downtown, I think we'd be hard pressed to find 700.
I think you're being generous.
Generous. I'm adding in Shelley's property that we don't own and what we just leased from Dennis McDermott. So we're probably closer to, you're right, probably closer to 600. You could put 150 stalls on that firehouse property if you knock the building down, and, you know, just put it for parking. Because the alternative is, at some point, we're making parking. And it's probably going to be ground parking because the money for a parking garage is not going to exist.
I have a couple thoughts. One, yes, we knew parking problem was going to be a problem, and we were anticipating that. And I think eventually we're going to have to look at garages, even if they're small garages throughout the town.
See where the property is in the parking district.
I'd hate to see that firehouse knocked down, or even used for parking, but not proposal, but an idea I've been working on the last couple of weeks that I was just getting some legal opinions on, and for the Suffolk County Community Historical Society was looking for additional space to expand their use and to create a fireman's museum and to create, I think the Indian Museum in Southold was looking to relocate, and to create and to work and to get some space for the town of Shore, which needs to be relocated because of the building she's in. So that wasn't quite pulled together yet, but I mean, that was another idea for that building. So I think the multiple use for that building, I think the parking, we'd have to address another way, I think. I think that the building should stay. I think it's,
I have to agree with Councilman Wooten. I think the
although it should be
building,
revamped.
the main part of the building was built in 1935. That's a historic building, the main part. And there was 2 additions put on it, one in the rear, one on the east side. Those 2 additions can come down and just keep the main historic building, and have parking all around that main building, which would increase our parking for downtown.
Put it in the parking
at,
district.
at
Let it
the-
stay in the parking
at the-
district.
Yes, in the parking, that would increase
I
it,
don't think it's in a parking district.
but it would
Not a
keep
parking
the
district.
historic
No, we
building
would put it in.
and,
We would, I think
go
we would have
along
to,
with
right?
part of what, Councilman Wooten said, and that would go great with an artist. You got the whole main floor, and you got the basement, to do things with. And I just think that, we could do multiple things with that building.
Well, I just pulled the
uh,
engineering
with-
report on that
with
building.
the,
There's some work that needs to go.
With this building that was built in 1935, so, I don't think the whole building should come down. I do think the new portions could come down,
What is it? That's one.
So John, that would give us maybe 50,
Some people
50
say, well, if you
spots.
take the new portions down, the whole building will fall down, but that's not correct.
What is this?
They took the building down on Main Street, on Peconic Avenue, right next to the Vale Levitt, and the Vale Levitt didn't fall down. I mean, if you know what you're doing and that's your
They tried, they
business-
tried.
Yeah, we tried, that's it. If you know what you're doing and you're in that business, you can take the new part down without, disturbing the old portion of it.
I like the art space concept, because when they had that seminar last year for the new grant that they had out, for a Main Street grant,
The arts and
they
place.
took us for a tour of there, but it was before it was occupied, and they had the gallery on the first floor so that
Yep.
you can invite people in, and there's a
Right.
gallery where the local artists can display their art, and then as you went up,
Yep.
then you could see, you could go into the individual
Right.
apartments, and they have wine tasting down there and
But is,
other
aren't
things.
they,
It's really very
they're,
nice.
they're two-story, three-story?
Oh, that building's probably
What's
But I
that?
believe
Three
that
story.
that was
Three-story.
a,
Four story.
I
Four
believe that
stories.
that was a
Four
public-private
stories.
partnership, like
But-
who would own,
There's
And then after a few
54 apartments, in it.
Yeah.
who would own the building?
This
Would
is-
we
this is what-
sell the building?
Yeah, no,
It's
this is.
McLaren, right?
Well,
Who built the
that,
art
these are
space
things
site?
that
My
our
question
town
is,
attorneys
what's
would
it
have
gonna
to
cost
figure
us,
out
if we're gonna,
and
who's
tell
gonna pay
us.
for infrastructure?
All right, let's
But-
go.
And work on it.
You know something?
No.
This is interesting. We were talking to the mayor. He was very surprised he got that grant for the artist because he was in competition with Riverhead.
Yes.
Huh?
Yep.
And Riverhead said they didn't want it, so he says, we got it. Huh?
I think they
So,
did
I
a
mean,
feasibility
he was-
for
That
both
speaks highly of
Riverhead and
Riverhead.
Patchogue,
That's-
and then
Right.
Patchogue moved
I just
forward
wanna-
with it.
Well, let me
Make a
address
comment
George's
on the
question, because here's where the potential problem lies. Patchogue not only gave them the property, they gave them money in the form of a grant, and it was a hefty sum of money. It wasn't like $200,000 or something. It was a hefty sum of money Patchogue gave to the artist colony art space
Art and place, yeah.
to do this. I don't know that Riverhead is going to be shelling out $200,000 to give to them, and give the property to
Well,
them.
plus you would need a public referendum, I believe, for something like that.
You're
And
gonna-
Artspace is
I-
a national
But again,
organization,
What's
John,
that?
John.
Right.
Artspace is a national organization, and they
Right.
looked at Riverhead and they did the demographics, and they chose
Yep.
to go to Patchogue instead of come here, because I
No,
spoke
no,
to
No,
McLaren.
he was
Well, it's
said that he
interesting,
was very
I think there's
surprised
consensus
he
that,
was told that Riverhead didn't want it, and, they
wanna
went
utilize
over
it.
there.
Pontieri said that.
and not
Huh?
knock it down.
Pontieri.
That's a
I
good thing.
spoke to the person that actually built the space, who's McLaren from Artspace, and he said that between Riverhead and Patchogue was willing to give more than Riverhead was, which is why he opted to go there.
Well, that's what I said.
Riverhead
You-
wasn't willing
You
to
know,
give
you have to,
anything.
Well,
if
villages
you
have
want
no
your
money.
town or your village like he did to move forward, you have to spend a little money. It has to be municipal and private working together and getting these projects. If Riverhead doesn't wanna spend any money,
I
then
agree.
we should just fold up Main Street or town and say, okay, don't come here,
No, don't do
because we're
that.
not gonna help you
No,
out.
don't even say that.
No, no, but
I-
I mean, that's what
But
we
it is
have.
on the tax rolls, correct?
Yes. I'm
It's
not-
back on the tax rolls, and that's
Oh,
an
I don't-
important.
What
No,
is-
no.
No, it's not, it's our property.
No.
No, we, we'll. you
Art
put it-
sites is
yeah.
on the
Oh,
tax
yeah.
No,
rolls.
they don't pay any taxes.
They're
We did
taxes,
ask that
huh?
question, that they're
But
a
they'll pay
not-for-profit.
sewer taxes and all that stuff.
Yeah, they
They'll
would pay the ad
special
valorem.
district
Special
taxes.
district.
So if you did an RFP for a private developer to do something on the property similar to that,
If you did a summer wind type thing, I think
Summer
summer wind
wind.
got IDA benefits,
Going in.
if I'm not mistaken, so summer wind will eventually go back on the tax rolls. I don't think it's a not-for-profit,
No.
No.
so you're.
The taxes went from, I think, $30,000 a year, and after 10 years, they'll be $150,000 a
Yeah,
year.
but this is a different concept. I'm pretty sure Pontieri said that these are not taxed.
The-
That they're not, that's a
See,
not-for-profit.
that-
We
that's
work with
something
the
we would have
county
to
and
look
try to
into
get
too.
additional funding like we got for Summerlin to get the land purchase
I should just
price.
leave the room.
So that could be some income to the town if the county was willing to work on that. And they're working on the artist preference. And we had talked to art sites while they were doing that project. And it was a conflict of interest for them to advance something in Riverhead while that one was still being built because they bundled grants to get it built. But the one thing that's going on now is the consolidated funding application for New York State is open. So, you know, if we wanted to wait on the RFP and see if there's any funding based on, you know, an art type project, if the town was gonna commit to the property, we could test the waters on seeing if we got any funding for that, using the Main Street grant application too. Or we could just go with an RFP. There's been interest just for private purchase. There's the parking option. There's the art option. And then even the farmer's market that Ray's talking about could be a year-round and located
Well, I don't-
indoors, like Pike's
I
Place.
still think that Arts and Place lends itself much better to a building like Woolworth.
And that, there was a design for that building
And the
with
open
gallery
market and all
space
that.
in
I
the,
mean,
in the
that lends-
bottom.
'cause you got
Yes.
people living right
Shared
on the
gallery
street.
space, so that would be another potential project to try to see if we could get something together for with funding.
The problem is that the art,
In place.
in place corporation, they want the property and they want the money. We're not getting the Woolworth building to them because there's a
So
cost
it's
associated
like
with
a
that.
YMCA type thing?
So, yeah, so I guess the question is, as a board, I like the idea of what you're saying is maybe we
Let's see.
don't necessarily do the RFP yet. Let's see what
Let's
kind
see
of
what kind of money.
funding we can obtain, put this in
Well, you got
as
the
our
this one.
match, and see what comes
Yeah.
out.
And
And then
I-
we work directly
I
on
feel-
the plans.
As Riverhead comes back, our biggest problem is gonna be parking.
Yeah.
We have to sit down and identify which areas we're gonna expand into, without, just, I don't wanna have an oops moment here. We have to say, when we're done with our study, we have to have this, and we need parking, and I think before we jump on this, we have to identify the areas, this may or may not be one,
Well, you
and
know
move forward
something,
from there.
if you look on Third Street,
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because
There's a
there was,
park-
30 years ago, Riverhead, there was no parking when things were booming.
but if you look
And
on,
we've-
if you look on Third Street, there's Suffolk County National Bank owns a parking lot. There's a vacant house right next to it that's, getting dilapidated now.
Right.
Which you could probably pick up for a good price,
So,
and then make a 150-stall parking lot up there. Because the
Is-
Suffolk County National Bank has a good size.
I agree.
And those parcels,
That's what you have to look into, but you have to also,
well, you have
spend
to
money
identify
to do
those
that.
areas,
You
and
have
then we
to
move forward.
identify it
Right, and these
say,
are-
this
there's
is
the
what we
future.
wanna do.
Yeah,
Yes.
we also have the BOA grant
Right.
that we have out to RFP, and then we're gonna have a planning consultant
Right.
that can help us with
you
some
got
of these
second, you got
technical
First Street
issues.
parking lot that if you can get the grant money to put, even if it's small pads on there,
we
put
look
a
at one
couple of
time at
stories
First
on.
Street,
It doesn't have to be
taking
the
those
entire
lots out,
parking lot.
There's a
expanding
house
across,
pads,
there's something we
parking
can
garage,
extend
like they
that,
did
which
in
I think would
Patchogue.
really
They
make
took
it
it
nice.
down after a while.
Then it's
There's a home for sale on, between First and Second Street that if we had come to pass with the movie theater, we were looking to have the developer buy that lot. It's still for sale, and that may be something, I don't know that the parking, you guys, you do have reserve funds, but right now to purchase that would not be my druthers. I would rather you pave and,
120,000, I think, for that house?
yeah, so.
So we're gonna
I think a little
get
more than
15
that.
stalls?
Is it a little?
But
more
it would
than
be,
that?
it would
One of
open up
those.
First Street to Second Street and then open up to the,
Oh,
right, and
Yeah,
make
it's,
it
I
real.
think it's right, contiguous to the parking district.
Here it is,
no, it's one or
That
two
piece.
over.
No, it's
No,
one
it's
or
not
two.
the next one.
right next door to it.
No, it's not the next
Right
one.
here.
All right, this is the map of where the parking,
Nope.
oh, I'm sorry,
I thought for sure that
It's
it
right here.
was.
No, it's not. It's like in the middle of the block.
One,
sorry.
It's actually,
it's right here.
it's one of these three right here.
This
It's
one's
not
in
the one
parking
right
lot,
next
but this is the
door.
loose property, so it's next door to the
But you
loose
know what, the
Yeah.
master plan was adopted to allow for 500 apartments downtown, and right now there's only an application or 50 that are actually going to be built. So I don't know how,
Well-
you can account for 500 apartments without
You
addressing
can't.
the problem, unless they thought,
Let's-
once we have a parking problem, it'll be easier to get grant money for a parking structure, and so, is that the case?
Well,
Oh, the pains of
that, I mean,
growth.
there's other options with
Good
looking at the
conversation. We
bonds
wouldn't
and
have
how
this
it
Let's grow.
pays,
Ooh,
and,
hold on.
you can have private spots for some of the uses, and then you pay the bond.
I-
There's different ways to
It's-
finance
I will
it.
say the town board is
Next.
going to have to seriously
You
think
idiot.
about not allowing apartments on the south side of Main Street, because I think once you put the summer wind in there, and if one other one goes in there, we have to.
Well, the only thing is,
Oh, I
because you
can't see
cannot
another
park enough.
five-story building on the south side, because you're taking away the river. I mean, I think you
River's
suggested
going
this to someone, that we should tier it. 5 stories on the north
Jim.
side, Jimmy,
Yeah.
and,
That's
4 or
been my
3
battle
stories
call,
on the south side.
Mhm.
So we have that series that look into the,
Right.
river.
That's
Well-
gonna be
Third
like a.
Street, 5
Well, that was
stories all
a
the way down
visioning
to-
plan, and we'll go back, I'll go back 3 years ago, when we talked about that, when they increased the DC one, that the town, this is way back when, sort of put the cart before the horse. They were trying to make way for Apollo to come in. But by making DC one on the south side, in order for us to downsize or make it DC three or whatever, if we want to cascade that's always my battle, let's cascade the town from the railroad tracks down to the river. Let's put your DC ones over on 3rd Street and cascade it all the way down so that it's like a little metropolis over the river, and put your lower buildings, 2-story or whatever, on the south side. But in order to do that, and I think Sean and I talked about this, in order to do that, you really have to have a plan or a visioning done to do that. And I think that at the time was 30,000. We were trying to get that from bid to do that, but we couldn't get the money
But now
to
we're
do it.
gonna have the BOA. The BOA's gonna come back.
But that was always the idea, to try to diminish the south side so everybody could have a view of the river. And if that's the way we're gonna look at doing things, that might be the way to get rid of apartments on the
I think
south
you're
side.
gonna have to, the board,
She's gonna be
I
choking.
think you're really gonna have to consider, the board's gonna have to consider that, doing an update to the master plan for that, because you cannot.
The DC one is too intense on the south
Yeah,
side.
you
I've been saying
cannot
that for
block it.
years. Yeah. Yep.
So, let's do, I think that what was a good plan, I agree, George, we need to study this. Can we study this? Can we apply for the grant but not commit, if you will, until we know what the grant is? And at the same time, hopefully the BOA will come forward and the BOA can work on the parking.
Right, and then also they can, look at the project
Finance.
we're doing, and if we are successful with funding, they can help us tweak it and get more funding.
But what we really, there are some parking studies that were done, I haven't read them, that were submitted with the Apollo and all these other,
I got 15 of them. I
Yeah,
told you.
largely it comes to management. So right now we have free parking, so they have tools, the consultant comes in and says, you can time manage, you can pay for parking, and then there's different advantages. So for example, on the riverfront, if you want to turn over of 4 hours, that gives you enough time to eat and shop and leave your car for a while, but then doesn't encourage people to leave their car there, for the weekend. And beyond that, you can start having people pay, because once the prices, the value of the spots go up, people are willing to pay to have the spot. Even some of the residents might want to pay like a monthly fee for some dedicated spots, and then that generates revenue to the town to create more parking. So that's something where if we retain a professional parking consultant, they can look at our target and our target area and what our uses are and what our demand will be, and then maybe give us, action
But-
plan.
Right,
Well, you
and that's a
know-
good thing. If we're gonna look at, we're doing the master plan, but I'll tell you now, from everything I've ever read, and every seminar I ever went to, that talked about smart growth and talked about habitats and talked about that type of visioning for Main Street, it all revolves around residences. So you're gonna have to have some residences to sustain the businesses on Main Street. If you don't have that sustainability, there's just gonna be a transient town that's gonna be the 3 months a year.
Well,
and that's
I
it.
still think that a 2-story building on Main Street can be commercial on the bottom and residences on the 2nd story. And I think that would suffice with residents. We
Well,
got
they can
plenty
go to
of,
First Street and
plenty
Second
of
Street.
stores that they can go up, and they can put residents on the 2nd floor, and nice apartments on the 2nd floor.
why don't we do this?
Or even three
And I
floors.
think
This
Three
is,
floors
if
fine.
this is the
Parking more
consensus of
Three
the
floors are
board,
good.
because I share George's parking philosophy that I don't want to commit to doing anything until I know what I'm doing for parking, because I really don't want to displace other single-family houses for parking when I know I have this. But it would be interesting to me to see whether we could get a very, lucrative grant and then make the decision. If we don't
Right.
get a lucrative grant, maybe we turn around and say, all right, well, we will commit the money to do the parking study.
And I think in the interim, I mean, I think Ray, you were there, and I know Chris, you were there, but in 2009, the town board had a parking consultant come from California that did an all-day seminar at the Culinary Institute.
Right.
And he discussed, when you do have a parking problem, this is what you do. The spots
Well,
right
there
along,
is-
right along the restaurants, that's 2-hour parking. A little bit further back is 4-hour parking. Further back is all the 8-hour parking or all-day parking. And we can implement that now at a minimal cost and until we can determine whether or not we can get a grant and match the grant. But there are certain steps that we can take now based on that consultant's review of our town,
So it comes down to
which has
enforcement.
already been done,
Yeah,
on how to do
There
it.
is,
I was gonna say that.
there is
Wait,
a
but-
parking conference this month in Port Jefferson that's being put on by Suffolk County Planning,
You gotta pay to park in Port Jeff.
and it's,
Yeah.
it should be interesting
See,
to
when we,
attend, and it's
when-
for Main Streets.
when we
And
had
then-
meters on Main Street, the bid, had an employee that they paid to issue summonses and doing all this. When we took the meters away, the town did not wanna pay that employee any longer, so they got rid of it. So yes, putting time, we have time now, we have 2 hours possibly, we have nobody to enforce it though.
Well, we don't have the problem yet.
Right?
But let's do, if it's a
That's too
if it's
early
a
to start that.
consensus of the board,
Yeah.
let's try to apply for a grant using this as the, match. And then as long as we're not tied into it,
Okay.
is that what, we'll see. If they come back and say nothing, well then, nothing gained, nothing ventured, nothing gained. If they say nothing, at least we tried.
Okay,
All right, sounds good.
sounds good.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
Thank you,
uh,
Ray.
Thank you.
Where did Bob
Have a
go?
great day.
I'm doing the railroad station.
Riverhead Railroad
Oh, the
Station.
railroad station.
Riverhead doesn't own a railroad
I
station.
had a conversation, and I don't know if it went over there, with Helena Williams last week. I was very happy but dismayed. The Greenport Tall Ships trustee Kempner, very nice job.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you
was-
for coming. That was a great event. and
Fan-
Attended the opening ceremonies representing the town of Riverhead.
It was
very nice.
very nice.
They said the lines were long though to get on the ships.
Yeah, I got a
Like
sunburn.
an hour or two.
Huh?
It was long.
I got a sunburn on my legs.
That's not, they wait on line.
So we, I myself on Friday was policing the train station, and I called John Reeve, and John brought his crew back, and I had been there Friday morning to police the train station, and they policed the train station all day Saturday, and they policed the train station all day Sunday and Monday to make sure that it was clean, neat. We have a problem with people using the back of the building in inappropriate ways. At the staff meeting this morning, Monday, I spoke to Ray Coyne, and knowing Ray, he probably did it already, but we'll have to double check. He's going to put a porta potty, and Helena Williams said, I don't care if you put a porta potty there. She probably wants an agreement, but I said, put the porta potty there. So there will be, if it's not already there, a porta potty that the town is going to maintain right next to the train station to try to stop. I mean, it is really
Are we gonna send the bill to the MTA?
horrific. Listen, I
Need
wanna
more than
take
one
care of
porta
our
potty.
town first, and the porta potty, it's very inexpensive.
Yeah, we're putting 2 there, I hope.
I said this
Well,
years
let's see.
ago.
There are
Believe
other
me,
we're
lewd
doing
acts that
One
are
day, 2
occurring
days, that
other
thing will
than,
be jammed.
Well,
Town would
Yeah,
didn't
you're right,
want to
it's
spend
terrible.
money for anything.
It's
Well,
And this is before-
we're doing the porta potties,
Whole
so,
thing rocking.
if we need two, we'll do two, but
But the idea is intense there.
We have, the police department, that is a high priority. When a train comes in,
Yeah.
there's a police officer, unless they're called away for an emergency, on that platform or in that parking lot. Every train comes and
Yeah.
goes,
Well, he's not on a platform, he's sitting in
sitting
his
in the car.
car.
Yeah, but
he's
Well,
there.
they got bike cops, when the
Yeah,
bike cops.
yeah.
Yeah, 607 to 606.
Every time a train comes in, there's a police car parked
It's
up
only
over
3
there.
times a day. So it's not hard.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of stuff going on in the police department over there, so it's a very, I'm gonna say it may not look great, but it's probably a very safe area because there's always police through there. But, when I spoke to Helena Williams, we got in back and forth a little bit, and she was very, in a positive way, back and forth was, well, they're not my riders, they're your residents. I said, no, they're not my residents, you're riders. So we kind of agreed. If we wanted a porta potty, we did that.
Good.
Then she said to me, I'll let you go to an RFP for the building. I said, well, you did that the last time, and you made it so restricted, nobody could be there. She says, no, we've been waiting for you to tell us what you wanted. I said, well, we've been dealing with your staff, and that's not what, not her staff,
The
MTA staff.
management company.
And that's not what we're getting, we're not getting positive feedback from MTA staff. She says, well, I'm telling you right now, and I didn't see the letter yet, she may be in my inbox. She says, I will write you a letter, I will CC the MTA staff that we are going to go to a broad-based RFP with lots of uses, and, for the railroad station, and, commercial is fine, I don't wanna say anything goes, that's not what we talked about, but
I hope so,
it's
yeah,
gonna
right.
be very open-ended as to what we can put there.
That's good, because that was something that we had discussed.
Nightclub.
When they were talking about renewing the lease, and I said it would be great to get a Dunkin' Donuts or, some type of store like that in there where people come in on the train, they can go grab a cup, like they have at Ronkonkoma, and Bob said that MTA wouldn't let us do that, it was too restrictive, the lease, so I'm glad that they're willing to cooperate
Well, the
now.
wine council wanted to put an office there and hold little,
Wine
things.
tasting.
And
Oh,
they said that we
Perfect.
We have
couldn't
enough
do
bread
that
bags
because
walking
somebody would
around
drink
there.
wine
You got any- you got
and
any-
walk out on the railroad
Walking
track.
around
Got
there.
No, the wine council would have
Train.
been great for the East End
Good business for
to
them.
have their offices there.
Coffee, coffee.
Well, the more trains we can get,
No, but
even on
this
the
is,
local
wait,
Well-
I know you're
All
joking,
right, all
you
right,
think
all
this is a joke.
No.
But this is, the East End is wine, okay? So to have a wine council have an office, in Riverhead, where people can go in and get information about
Yeah.
wineries, I think would be
Oh, that's-
very
especially if you
advantageous
take
They
for
want
public
wine,
us.
absolutely.
transportation
To do
from
that.
there.
I think that would be a
because
great
ties
idea
in.
to
Right?
get information
But
like
I
a
mean,
visitor
it's just
station.
that, it's,
Okay. So
Or
Helena
park and-
Williams is,
park and ride.
she has committed to me
Railroad
over
Avenue
the
is not a
phone.
draw for that type of people.
She's committed to me over the phone that they will be drafting an RFP. The letters, maybe it's in my inbox email. And then we're gonna have the ability to work with them and hopefully try to select a business that will go in there. We'll do the porta potty temporarily, because maybe the business will leave the bathrooms open. I don't know, but I think, we're going in the right direction with the MTA. Now, she did also say she has big plans. She's not announced them yet, but big plans to do, I'm putting words in her mouth, the scoot trains, but short trains back and forth
That's a
between
good idea.
Greenport. They were tremendously successful. They had some problems. One of their biggest problems was that my wife's train, my wife took the train, it was at 11:30, it was late, probably due to switching problems. It got to Greenport 12:30 or something like that, or I guess about 12:30, and then somebody parked in Greenport up against the tracks, and they couldn't get the police department to tow the vehicle, so they had to it took them 2 hours to find the owner of the vehicle to move it, and the train was stuck there. And so Mason Haas was on the following train, he got put on a siding for 2 hours, waiting for this. So, she said we had problems, but, we're addressing the Greenport, the access to the track issue, and so she was very, enthusiastic about some sort of,
I like the
It
scoot
was great,
trains.
there was like
But as far as the railroad station goes on Railroad Avenue,
Right.
if the MTA would invest a little bit of money, I think if they cleaned up the back a little bit and maybe get rid of some of that cement, put some brush in and make it landscaped a little bit on that side, and maybe some, nice guys compliant lighting, I think that would help a lot to deter some of them.
And I've spoken to a couple of the officers there
Not to
that
put a
said
few
that
$100
a lot
into
of
it to make
the,
it look nice, but.
a lot of the Ludacks go on in between the trains, and we've talked in the past about the antique train that they have there, that's the train company, that they're using it for storage. I mean, people don't go in and out of that train, it's sitting on the track, and there's a lot of stuff from the Railroad Museum that is in the train. But if we could get that antique train off of the tracks and over onto the Railroad Museum property, it would probably be visited a lot more.
Yeah, well, the porta potty's a good
and
idea, though.
It would clean up
Yeah,
the
that-
area from what the police officers are
It's gonna
telling
get
me that
cleaned
patrol
up.
there.
That's a big train.
it's gonna get cleaned up in
Right.
the
I mean, I don't know if they'll fit on the museum property.
Well, let me explain something.
You should ask.
If Ms. Williams is successful in doing what she wants to do with the scoot trains, she needs that siding.
Okay.
When
Yep.
she needs that siding, that train's gotta go.
Yeah.
So it may not be there. And the Railroad Museum doesn't know this, but, they do now.
Yeah, but I thought they were getting space next to them too, the Railroad Museum or something, so they might have,
Oh, they have space over there, I think.
they have some.
What's left, the
repair it,
Blues
doesn't-
Festival, what's up with
Yeah.
the Blues Festival?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so we're gonna move forward with the Railroad Museum,
Yeah.
Railroad 2, yes.
Do you know if they intend to keep the jury train running? It doesn't seem to be that well used,
No, I don't know.
but.
That's an Ed Romaine question.
But it's a very convenient time if you wanna go into the city and you don't wanna leave at 6:20 in the morning or 4, it's like 9:10 or something. It's a nice train in.
Takes about, what, 2.5 hours?
I don't know, how well is it attended? Have you been there?
Only a couple of times, and I haven't really seen many people get off of it.
Why
I
not
know
take
a lot
it to
of people
school
use
You
train?
it.
change it around Concord, correct?
You mean to go in? No,
Yeah,
I mean,
to go in.
They have this jury train that comes out to Riverhead now.
Yeah, well,
And now it will accept passengers on the way back, but yeah, you
Yes.
have to change it around.
Yeah,
And
you have
it's
to change it
also,
around Concord.
it's also, that train is utilized by a lot of people at Tanger. Janine Evans told me that people that work at Tanger, that take the train in from Patchogue or from other areas throughout Suffolk County, and they come into Riverhead, and then they take a cab to Tanger to go to work, so.
So it's getting customers.
Hopefully.
The scoot trains would help that out a lot too, because I don't think they want to come out
All
east of
right.
Yaphank anyway.
Let's move to Blues Festival. George,
done.
why don't you run this for a second, because you wanted to talk too
I'm
about
done.
it?
I've talked, I've had my piece to
Oh,
say. I
we need
talk
to
a right
run
pick a
out for
skill.
one second.
It seems like you all made
You
an
wanna
agreement last
talk about
Thursday.
Do you want to sit,
but
talk
the-
about, give me one, I just have to run out for
Yeah.
a second.
Go ahead.
Don't bring back your gavel.
Behind the
So you're all satisfied at talking to
I
Ray?
think I mean, I'm not totally satisfied, but I think that was a good agreement, but I'm still concerned that Greenport Brewery is supplying the insurance for the alcohol being served. His alcohol being served.
Bob,
So anything else that comes in there, whether it's over the fence, under the fence, whatever, the town isn't technically, there's no one covering that with insurance policy.
they're gonna have.
We're taking a chance, we're
But
hoping
they're
it
gonna
doesn't
have-
come in.
We do
No,
not
they're
have a
gonna have
policy, to
security.
be exact, we do not have a policy of insurance coming in from the Blues Festival
Nor did we ever
promoter.
did.
And for liquor liability, we
Right.
do have one
For
for general liability.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah,
But
but,
they're not
They're gonna have
authorized to serve alcohol,
Right.
and they're taking efforts to prevent
And
any
they're gonna be security
illicit
there.
they're
alcohol
gonna have
from coming in.
security at every entrance
That's
there.
correct.
And they're not
That's the
gonna,
representation.
they're not gonna allow backpacks in.
Right, yeah,
They're
right.
not gonna allow people carrying,
Your access is gonna be from just, what,
well,
2
there's
or
one
3
access
points?
in the back,
In the back.
and there's one access from Main Street, and one access from Peconic Bay.
Right, and that is to be true, George, because my brother Carl, who for years and years and years, when the bid ran it, and it was open and free to us taxpayers in our
At that
parking
time,
lot.
which I think it should be.
They would go down with chairs and a little wagon, and they'd take their little bottle of wine and cheese, and they'd sit and have a nice picnic and watch the band.
Right.
It was a beautiful event.
Correct.
After it stopped, and then it became a closed event and a charged event, they went there with a little wagon and stuff, and they weren't allowed in. So they turned around and went home. So,
Yeah.
so they do
So-
check.
So they're not
They
gonna
do
let
check.
anybody in, that has any alcoholic beverages.
And hopefully
or
nobody,
backpacks.
they don't let anybody in that's already intoxicated.
Well, that's half, well,
You know,
yeah,
and that
you're
could be a
right.
problem too. The
Well,
guy gets
well,
loaded up
you know
outside, and he
something?
goes in and out if we have to
I
fight.
have to say,
Yeah,
you
but-
It's a
really
good
have to be
event.
You can't stop
intoxicated,
that.
but you can't, who's gonna determine
You can't stop
if
that.
you're intoxicated or not?
can't serve a drunk
without
person.
having the proper tools
There's no law
to
against
do
public
it. And you
intoxication.
have to have police officers to do
Right,
that.
it's just
It's
that if
called,
we have a problem, somebody gets in an accident, and at that point,
Well, you know, anything can
Someone's gotta be
happen,
liable.
George, anything can
Yeah, there's no
happen.
law against public intoxication.
Yeah, anything
As
can
as
happen.
was discussed last week, you know, they will go back and see where that person was consuming alcohol, and if those parties will be brought into the suit.
and the town
in
will
this
get,
case-
well,
in
because
this-
that's normal, they're gonna take.
If they get
Riverhead.
determined.
Well, Riverhead will get dragged in it,
Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt.
first
Well,
one
that's
that's
what
gonna
the,
go in it.
right, right.
But,
and at that point.
That's why I'm giving everybody there a tweets cut.
But don't forget, George, anything we do here, we're gonna have to do with everybody in the town of Riverhead that holds any event.
Okay, so
With
who's,
alcohol
so
on town
John,
property.
With alcohol on public
Yeah, on
property.
public
so John, are
property.
you gonna take the lead in dealing with the insurance company to get the, dollar amount that they're asking for minimized? Because I know you feel strongly about
Well, I don't
changing
think
it to 2
5
million,
million, I think
so.
did.
5 million is, we did change that.
We did
We're
as
going
a
to two,
consensus,
we're going to
said
2
2
million.
No, but I'm saying,
We did
to
as a,
get the insurance company to say, this is okay.
we made a decision last
Right.
time board meeting.
The insurance
that-
company, all they did
that
was
we would do
recommend,
2
they
million.
didn't, you know, they're not saying, we're not
They
gonna
strong-
insure
they
you unless
strongly
you have
recommend
5
it.
million, it's a recommendation that you should have that.
Yeah,
And my
because-
office has been working, spending an
forbid
exorbitant
we get
amount
sued.
of time
To bring the number down.
to get these things done.
So the bottom line is, no question about it, we're probably taking a little risk.
Yeah, of course,
We've
you're always
got-
taking a little risk.
You always take a risk in a public
Fact.
You
event.
always have, you
Always.
always take a risk.
Always.
You're satisfied?
At this
I
point,
don't
I,
need the gavel?
Taking a risk for 20 years.
You
All
take a
right.
risk with any
Mr.
public
Filibuster.
gathering. Any public gathering.
I was working that out.
Which is
The
$2
only thing
million.
with- the only thing with public
Go
events
$2
is
million.
it exasperates itself when there's alcohol involved. far, that's all.
Okay?
All right, can I get a motion to go into executive session
All right.
to discuss contractual, a contract with ABL?
I wanna,
Oh, he wants to say something.
No, I mean, before we go into executive
Yeah.
session, I mean, I just want a chance to catch Deputy Town Attorney, so while you're doing that, I wanna
Okay,
take that out.
So we're not going to
ABL personnel issues,
Didn't get any into that.
contract issues, personnel contract
Right.
issues.
What's AVL?
Should be consistent with everybody.
Contract for the computers with,
Oh, ABL, okay.
ABL.
That's, yeah.
and I think the police chief had an issue that he wanted to talk about,
I like that
personnel
motion.
issue.
Oh, wait a minute, Jill wants to,
Is it $2 million per, per,
Person.
vendor?
Per vendor. 2 million per vendor. So that gives you more insurance than even we had before.
okay?
Okay, you got a motion, the second?
Make a motion, we adjourn and go into executive session
Didn't
for
Bob just say he wanted to
personal
come back?
matters and, contractual matters.
Did-